Hey, it's Molly. Today on Frosted, I'm gonna be making a 6-layer salted caramel chocolate cake. It's rich, it's indulgent, it's delicious, and it's every chocolate lover's dream. Start with your dry ingredients in a sifter. All-purpose flour. Everything is gonna go in here, including the sugar. Unsweetened cocoa powder, baking soda, salt, baking powder. Give it a nice whisk to get everything nice and incorporated together. Get this all into your mixer, and if you don't have a mixer, you can leave this all in one bowl. Just make sure that you're really diligent with the mixing. And now we're gonna add our wet ingredients. So I've got some safflower oil, vanilla extract, some buttermilk, and some eggs. So I'm gonna give this a quick mix. And once you start to see a batter form, you can start to slowly add your last ingredient, which is some warm water. Not too fast, or you'll splash yourself in the face. And about halfway through, turn your mixer off and scrape down this bowl. It smells so delicious in here. It is so chocolatey. Okay. This batter is gonna be on the thinner side, but don't worry, it bakes into a beautifully dense, rich cake. So I have my cake pans here. They're 9-inch cake pans, and the way we prepare them is by buttering them, putting a piece of parchment, then buttering and dusting with cocoa powder. So this makes sure that this cake doesn't stick, and because it's really rich and dense, it does tend to be a little sticky, so make sure you get this right. Divide your batter between all 3 cake pans. This batter is so nice and loose that you don't need to spread it to the edges. It'll get there on its own. Okay, great, let's get these in the oven. Okay, now we're gonna make our salted caramel. We're gonna start by adding our sugar and some corn syrup and some water. Give this a little mix. Just wanna make sure all of your sugar is nice and wet before we get started. Once this is all nice and incorporated, use a little water and a pastry brush to brush the sides and get any remaining sugar crystals wet so that we don't have any crystallization, which will ruin your caramel. All right, so now we get this on. Don't touch it, just watch it until it starts to turn color, and then we'll start to swirl it around. You're looking for a dark, deep amber color. So now you have a sugar syrup with some nice small bubbles forming. Now's the time to start paying attention because it's gonna start to turn color. It's a hurry up and wait thing, but it's worth it. The fun thing about caramel is that with just a few degrees difference, you can be making a hard candy, you can be making a caramel sauce, you can be making a chewy caramel maybe, so temperature is really key here. Okay, so we're starting to get color here, which is now when you can kind of start to gently swirl your pan around to evenly distribute the color that you're seeing. We're looking for a really dark, deep amber. This is a very crucial time. This is probably the last 30 seconds. All right, so now we have exactly the color that we like, a really rich, deep amber, and we're gonna turn the heat lower, and then we're gonna start to add our cream in a very slow stream. Once you have your cream and it's kind of slowly starts to simmer down, give it a nice whirl. Make sure it's nice and incorporated. I mean, it's a beautiful color. And now we get even more specific and we add a candy thermometer and we bring this up to exactly 238 degrees. Okay, we're at 238 degrees. Get this into a bowl to cool slightly, about 15 minutes. So 15 minutes later, here we are, slightly cooled, but still very hot, so careful. And we're gonna add 2 sticks of cold butter, 1 tablespoon at a time. This is called mounting with butter, and it's gonna give it a really nice, rich, delicious flavor and exactly the kind of consistency that we want. Temperature and consistency is key here. So if your caramel is too loose, your cake layers will just slip right off. And if it's too thick, then you're gonna have a really clawing, chewy caramel, which we don't want. Okay, our last tablespoon of butter. And with that, our salt. Once this is all incorporated, let this cool completely before you use it to build your cake. While our caramel is cooling, we're gonna make this decadent chocolate frosting. Start with some semi-sweet chocolate and cut it. Size doesn't really matter here because this is all gonna be melted in a bowl, but it goes faster in smaller pieces. Go ahead and melt your chocolate, and while it's cooling, we'll work on the rest of our frosting. This frosting is so decadent. We use melted chocolate and cocoa powder to give it that really satisfying chocolate flavor. Start with adding some cocoa powder to some water to make a slurry. Next, we're gonna cream our butter and some powdered sugar until it's nice, light, and fluffy. This chocolate cake and this caramel deserves a frosting of stature. Add a generous pinch of salt. This looks great, nice, light, fluffy, and now we're gonna add our chocolate slurry. Give this a little mix. We're gonna finish with our melted chocolate, which is slightly cooled, and this can all go in at once. Using a darker chocolate and cocoa powder is gonna give us a really rich chocolatey flavor without a lot of sweetness, which is such a nice balance with the sweet caramel. This looks amazing. Look at this beautiful, shiny, thick, rich chocolate frosting. It needs to sit for about a half an hour before it gets to the right consistency to frost our cake. Okay, we're almost there. Just a few final steps before we start assembling our cake. So these beautiful chocolate cake layers are just slightly domed, so we're gonna trim the tops. And for this, I like to use an offset serrated knife. And as usual, save this for a snack. And then we're gonna just divide this cake layer in half. So start by just lightly scoring and just rotate your cake stand, holding your knife really steady. And then once you get all the way around, you can start moving inwards. So now we have 2 beautiful layers, and we're gonna add that to our other 4 layers, and we're gonna start to build this cake. We've got 1 bottom layer, and then we're gonna start our caramel filling. So we're gonna use 3/4 of a cup. This looks so beautiful and smells amazing. Okay, last layer is a bottom half, and we're gonna flip it upside down so that we get a nice flat edge. And then you're just gonna give it a nice little press, make sure everything is where it's supposed to be. And as if this wasn't indulgent enough, now we're gonna cover this with some beautiful chocolate frosting. Don't get fancy here, just give it a nice even coating around the tops and side. Okay, this looks amazing, but we're gonna give it just a quick final touch, and we're gonna use a small offset to kind of give it some texture and make some nice swoops. So just move your spatula back and forth, kind of making an S shape. Okay, here we are. It is so incredible. It is just the most mouth-watering cake I've ever seen. And we're just gonna finish it off with some nice flaky sea salt, because what goes better with chocolate and caramel than salt? There you have it, guys. Chocolate, caramel, salt, the perfect cake for the chocolate lover in you.